Hi friends, you are welcome in this video. Friends, in this video we are going to discuss about a new topic in the criticism and theory. And here we have a very fine essay to discuss today. We will talk about Peter Barry's very famous essay, Theory Before Theory, Liberal Humanism. Because friends, this essay is very significant. In this essay he talks about how English studies developed, what are the basic principles of the liberal humanism, what is liberal humanism and how it came into existence, and where the first English teaching and English studies were shaped and how it has been shaped, how this subject came into existence or how it came into the field of teaching. So all these things he talks in this very essay called Theory Before Theory, Liberal Humanism. Friends, this essay is significant for students, teachers and academicians and for those who have interest in English studies, because this essay deals with the aspects or initial theorizing of the English literature. So we'll discuss about this essay in detail. Friends, in this essay we'll discuss two parts of this essay. This is a longer essay and it needs an elaborate discussion. So in this video we'll discuss about two parts of this essay. I have divided this essay into different parts as given in this essay by Barry. So the very first part here for our discussion will be how did English begin as a subject, or beginning of English as a subject, beginning of English teaching. So this will be the first part, and the second part will be the basic principles of liberal humanism, or what are the basic principles or tenets of liberal humanism according to Peter Barry. So we'll discuss these 2 points in this video. So let's start the very first point, that is beginning of English teaching or beginning of English studies. Friends, English was not a subject till 19th century because it was not considered as a significant, and in the Middle Ages, we find that in England there were only 2 universities. The very first is Oxford and second is Cambridge. And in these universities, we do not have English as the subject till 19th century. There were only subjects which were taught in these prestigious universities. Greek and Latin literature, mathematics and some divine studies were available. So friends, these universities were not open for all. So the general people or general masses could not get education in these universities. Even women also are not entered in these universities, or they also did not have permission to learn in those prestigious universities. And when this dissatisfaction among people increased there, the rulers felt that now it is a need to establish some college and get these people into those college in education. So education was limited only to Anglican churches or only to Anglican people, and the other people, for example Methodist, Catholic, then we have atheist, these were barred. Even women were barred from these universities. So dissatisfaction grew, and they felt the need of establishing new college or accommodation of these people into the education system. And for the first time in 1826, they established a university college, and in this university college we find that in 1828, remember this date, 1828, English as a subject is started for teaching or learning for all. And in this college, all people from all stratas could get education and they could get admission in this college, university college. Again, in 1831, another college has been established, King's College. Later it became very famous London University. It is transformed into London University, and in that London University, for the first time, English literature, the course on English literature have been introduced. And before, in 1828, we find that English as a subject is introduced, but only the study of English language has been introduced. And in 1829, the first English professor has been appointed in the university college. So friends, till this time we find that English was not so popular subject, or it was not a subject which is opted by many people or by many scholars or the common masses. In 1840, we find that for the first time a very prolific literary person or a prolific English teacher has been appointed, called F.D. Morris, and he delivered a very profound lecture on English literature. And according to Peter Barry, this lecture has been considered as the foundation of liberal humanism, because Morris was well aware of the situation of that time. People were dissatisfied and they were feeling alienated from the rulers. They were feeling detached from the rulers, upper classes, religion, and ultimately from the state. And this situation has led into a very complex kind of situation at that time in London or in England. And this has been considered, or this has been very critically taken by this F.D. Morris, and he suggested that the English study should be introduced among these people. And then they established different university colleges, or universities have given license to establishing the different colleges in major industrial cities. For example, colleges were established in Liverpool, Birmingham, then Manchester, Leeds. At that time, in these colleges, English has been taught to the masses. According to Peter Barry, this dissatisfaction increased among people and they felt the need of English studies. And at the exact time, F.D. Morris has suggested that English studies should be introduced on a greater scale, and then it was introduced in these colleges, and then people got satisfaction of inclusion, and the very anger of people or the dissatisfaction of people has been resolved through this medium. And we can say that, or Peter Barry very clearly states that it has become an option to the religion in those days. So this was the initiation of the English studies in England, and then it spread to the other parts of Europe. Now friends, if you read this essay, you will find that the English studies or the course of English has not been introduced in these prestigious universities of Oxford and Cambridge until 1894 and 1911 respectively. In Oxford University, we find that the syllabus is framed based on the very English language, and first it is introduced in the form of language, Anglo-Saxon language, Middle English, or different kinds of English in ancient period, and this has been studied through literature. Now still the course of literature has not been introduced in the Oxford University, but Peter Barry again states that the real foundation or the real course or path of English studies has been established in Cambridge University, when the three pioneers of English literature was there in Cambridge University. The first was I.A. Richards, second was William Emerson, and the third was F.R. Lewis. Now these three figures were very important in establishing the future course of English studies. First, I.A. Richards published a book called Practical Criticism in 1929, and in that book he has given a method of practical criticism. Now, a method of practical criticism which still today is very famous, and we employ or we apply this method, or still we follow this method in our English courses. So in this method he talks about you need not to think about the background or any kind of element related to that particular text. You need not to think about its social background, political background, or the biography of author, or the biography of that particular literary text. Just you need to focus on that text and try to understand its meaning based on its structure and the close reading. So he has given the method called close reading. Again, his pupil William Emerson, he also published a book in 1930 called 7 Types of Ambiguity, and in that 7 Types of Ambiguity he has dissected the meaning, and he has given how different types of meaning is attached to the text or the poetry. And again, next we have F.R. Lewis. Actually, F.R. Lewis did not compose any particular or separate book on literary criticism, but his wife Q.D. Roth, now later she became Q.D. Lewis, and Mr. Lewis, both they ran a journal called Scrutiny for 21 years, and in that Scrutiny they have composed long types of essays regarding literary criticism and the close reading. Now they have expanded the very scope of this close reading method from poetry to the other texts like novels, passages, or generally prose writing. So this is their basic contribution according to Peter Barry. Friends, in the second part of this tutorial, we have Peter Barry's argument, or Peter Barry's 10 tenets of liberal humanism, or the principles of liberal humanism. According to Barry, what do we study when we study English literature? Do we study only books or authors? So the answer to this question is not only we study these books and authors, but values or morality or a system generated by this English studies. So here we have his own words. Let's read. Of course, we learn things about specific books and authors, but I mean here the more general values and attitudes which we absorb from English and which remain as a kind of distilled essence of the subject when all these specific details have been forgotten. Now it is not only the study of English authors or the English books, but the study of a system or study of values or attitudes embedded in this literature. So friends, he talks about 10 basic principles of English literature, or 10 basic principles of liberal humanism. Let's understand his 10 basic features of liberal humanism. Friends, here we have the first tenet or first principle: literature is everlasting, and he cites the example of William Shakespeare, that Shakespeare became timeless due to the universality of his literature. And according to Ben Jonson, he is not an age but the ages. And Ezra Pound also states that literature is news which remains new. So this is the everlasting nature of literature. The second feature or second tenet we have: meaning is within the text. There is no need to elaborate meaning by placing it in any outside context. So this is very simple. According to Barry, it is not customary to place a text into the context of say for example socio-political, then literary, historical, or autobiographical. So meaning is inherent in the words or text. Third principle: to better understand a text, it should be detached from the above context, and a close reading and verbal analysis should be carried out. So this is again very simple, that it should be detached from the socio-political, cultural, or any kind of biographical context, and we should derive meaning from that particular text based on the close reading. Next tenet we have: human nature repeats in history, hence he calls it as unchanging. Consistency is more crucial than innovation in literature. Now this point is controversial, because sometimes we feel that innovation is significant in literature, but Barry says that consistency is more significant and not the innovation. The next point we have: individuality is the unique essence of an author and characters in literature. It can be changed but cannot be transformed. Now this is again a very controversial thing, how characters can be changed and how they cannot be transformed. What is the difference between change and transformation? So this point is also sometimes become very controversial. There are examples in literature. He states that characters change in the course of life, but he or her individuality remains the same. Now we can attach individuality to this transformation and the change to the life of those characters depicted in the literature. The next or sixth tenet we have: in this principle, he talks about the purpose of literature, that is to emphasize and refine human values and human life. So here he says that human life and human values should be refined through the literature, but it cannot happen in a programmed way. But literature is not in a very systematic kind of entity, or a systematic or programmed kind of way to reform these values. There are its own ways. There are ways of authors, there are ways of its literature or its poetry or particular kind of form that it can be reformed. Then we have next point: there should be a solid combination of form and content. Now there must be an amalgamation, or there must be coherence and logical sequence between the form and content of the text. Fancy of the form or content should be avoided. Decoration won't help to sustain a good literature. A natural fusion of form and content is necessary to form the expected effect on readers. So this is stated in this seventh tenet or principle. The next principle we have: sincerity is far more significant quality of literature. So every literature must be sincere, and here we have his own words: sincerity comprising truth to experience, honesty towards the self, and the capacity for human empathy and compassion is a quality which resides within the language of literature. Further, he states that rather sincerity is to be discovered within the text. Where we should find this sincerity? In the text or in the literature. Next principle we have: a good literature silently shows and demonstrates the things rather than to explain or say. Now he distinguishes between showing the things or explaining the things. So the literature is silently shows and demonstrates the things happening in the society. So unless ideas are not given a concrete embodiment, they are worthless. So this idea should be given a concrete embodiment. And the last principle, friends, here we have: the task of literary criticism is to interpret the text. This is we can say that more significant tenet or more significant principle, because all the time scholars discuss about what is the basic aim or what is the basic end of this criticism. He clearly states that the basic end of criticism is to interpret the text. Now it is clear through these 10 principles. He says that this is the very ideas of liberal humanism. Here we have his own words: the above list contains a series of propositions which I think many traditional critics would on the whole subscribe to if they were in the habit of making their assumptions explicit. Together, ideas like this and the literary practice which went with them are now often referred to as liberal humanism. Now friends, very clearly he stated here that liberal humanism is nothing but the practice of these 10 tenets. And friends, we find that not only literary scholars but teachers, students and the academicians who are working in the field of English studies are following this course of liberal humanism, and we find that this course has been introduced in many institutions, colleges, universities around the world called as liberal humanism. So this is the concept of liberal humanism of Peter Barry. So friends, thank you very much for watching this complete tutorial. Please like this video, share this video among your friends, and do not forget to subscribe Literature Simply and also press the bell notification icon for updates.